Another day has come and gone, and this day is special because another subscriber milestone has been obtained on this channel. Thank you, kings and queens, so damn much. And for the 700 sub celebration, you lovely people voted and wanted to see a video about my top 10 3DS games. Now, I have a lot of fond memories of the 3DS, specifically the times of hanging with my friends before school and playing stuff like Smash or Mario Kart while we wait for the bell to ring. I personally consider it one of the more underrated handhelds ever made. But what games did I play on this weirdly tiny system? Like other lists before it, no remasters of old games are allowed. Sorry, Majora's Mask 3DS. I'm sure we are all just sitting here crying ourselves to sleep on the fact that you're not taking the number one spot. Without further ado, let's begin. Starting off this list with probably one of the more forgotten Final Fantasy games ever made. Like, seriously, how many of you even remember that this kind of game even existed? I sure didn't until I worked on this video. Final Fantasy Explorers is the sort of Final Fantasy weird Monster Hunter style spin-off where, while it doesn't have anywhere near as depth as Monster Hunter does, it does kind of follow the flow of that game rather well. You go out, fight monsters, collect materials for weapons and armor, do it again and again and again until you're satisfied for the day. If you're a longtime veteran of Monster Hunter, it'll probably be a little too basic for you, but for someone like me who was completely green to the franchise, it was honestly really fun, and awoke my interest in trying out Monster Hunter games. If you're curious, I do recommend giving it a shot. So, fun fact about me. Out of all of the franchises and genres of games I played, two in particular I'm not a huge fan of. The first is horror, and the second is actually visual novels. I don't hate these genres by any means, but I've never been super able to jive with the series I've tried out of two so far for the visual novel side. The first to grab my attention was Danganronpa for just how batshit insane the whole thing was. And the second was Ace Attorney, due to just how charming everything was in that game. And personally, one of my absolute favorites was Dual Destinies on the 3DS. I know a good portion of Ace Attorney fans aren't exactly happy with this game, and I do admit it has some heavy flaws upon a revisit, but to me, the pros heavily outweigh the cons. The game looks absolutely incredible, a lot of the cases are fun and interesting, Black Will is a fun antagonistic force, and the game's story about dealing with the dark ages of the law was a really unique idea. It certainly deserves criticism for how it's handled characters like Athena, sure, but I still have no issue saying it's one of my favorites. And hot take, I found it more fun than Spirit of Justice. You can challenge me in the comments. The 3DS era of Pokemon is a really fascinating time to look back on, as it's pretty much the time when Pokemon really started to lose its title as the undisputed kings of the handhelds. Not to say the run was a complete disaster, sure, but the 3DS era did start showing more problems that became a lot more prevalent in its Switch era. But while it does have some big issues, and it does fall on its face a few amount of times, I just can't deny how much I enjoyed Pokemon 7th Gen due to all of the changes it added to the mainline formula. Getting rid of gym badges in exchange for island challenges, it was a really rad script flip that I kind of wish got more games to flesh out more. And while a lot of the new Pokemon looked really cool, my favorite additions were the Alolan forms, which allowed older gen Pokemon to return in a brand new style. And of course, I can't not mention just how amazing Team Skull was in this game. Easily the best villain group, just to how fun and idiotic they are. This gen was a lot of people's beginning of the end. Even kind of mine too, when I think about how I felt about Gen 6 and a few other titles on here. But I do genuinely think Sun and Moon was the last pretty much fantastic Pokemon game. Yeah, it wasn't long before a Mario game was going to make it onto this list. It kind of feels impossible to make a top 10 list about a Nintendo console without the portly plumber appearing at least once, right? I'm not even kidding. I don't think you can make a top 10 list without this guy on here. It's just that hard. And my choice for the first of the Mario games on this list is without a doubt Mario 3D Land. The amount of charm in this game is just on another level. Taking the classic 2D Mario design and translating it over fantastically. It was also nice to see the return of things like the Tanuki power suit, up in all of its absolute glory. Plus, you can't deny that this doesn't look cute as all hell. Is it the best version of this kind of style? No, in my opinion that still easily goes to Mario 3D World. But it was still a super fun game that every Mario fan I think should play. I hope with the Switch 2 coming possibly soon, Nintendo tries another game like this because I am so curious to see what else they have in store. Man, I really miss when crossover projects happened a lot more often. I get a lot of them usually led to a bunch of mediocre Smash fighters and other shit I don't bother to care about remembering. But there were also times when something just truly magical came from it. And no game better represented that more than Project Xzone 2. While 2 was definitely a massive step up from 1 in terms of improving several gameplay aspects, things like allowing you to upgrade skills for 1, the best parts of these games is easily the character interactions. Seeing dudes like Leon S. Kennedy interact with X and Zero, Phoenix Wright chatting it up with Yuri and Flynn from Tales of Vesperia, Ryu from Shenmue meeting with fucking Kiryu and Majima. It's kind of a shame Bandai Namco is, Bandai Namco. Because honestly, with the right people at the helm, this is a series with near endless potential, and it is a damn shame it was only on the 3DS. This series deserved so much better. Okay, look. Before you go down and get angry, I get it. The 3DS era of the Mario and Luigi saga is nowhere near as fondly looked back upon as the DS or GBA era was. It gave us some of the most disliked Mario and Luigi titles, and was the time Alpha Dream ended up going bankrupt, putting the series in stasis until just recently. And that is definitely worth some anger, but god damn it, Dream Team is just too good of a game to be buried underneath all that frustration. This game embodies just pure fun and charm from pretty much every angle. Solving puzzles in the dream world by messing around with Luigi's face is super cute. The bros attacks in Dream Team are some of the most creative this franchise has ever been. It's just such a shame Paper Jam Onwards wasn't able to reach that level of quality. Although I do have hopes seeing how good Brothership looks. So here's hoping it'll be good. So, while I was working on this video, I actually wasn't super sure whether or not I wanted to put either of the Mystery Dungeon games on this list, as my last memories of those games, mainly Super Mystery Dungeon, weren't exactly super pleasant. So for the hell of it, I decided to boot up Gates to Infinity, and surprisingly, I enjoyed it way more than I remembered. While severely lacking in starting Pokemon options, that's honestly this game's biggest weakness in my opinion, this game excels at providing an incredible Mystery Dungeon experience, having the same level of humor and heart that its predecessors had before it. Not to mention all the super unique additions like 3D areas to explore, letting you build a second team to use for requests while the main story continues on, or crazy shit like using the 3DS camera to take pictures of items to unlock extra dungeons. Also, I love the fact that you get side characters into your party as a 5-person Mystery Dungeon team, and they even get their own development. That was a really nice touch to the game. I still don't think it's as good as something like Explorers of Sky or the originals, but man, it really is underrated. Kind of a shame I just wasn't able to enjoy Super Mystery Dungeon. So, 2 games at the same spot isn't something I normally do for these lists. But to be honest, these games both hold a special place in my heart for very similar reasons. While both have a lot going for them, impressive looking graphics, addictive gameplay, large cast of characters with unique new additions to their respective formulas, they honestly hold a high spot on this list for much more personal reasons. See, in high school, I was a pretty lonely kid. I wasn't really able to just make a lot of friends because I went through the motions more than anything else. And it did work, sure, I got through day to day, but I was always feeling kinda hollow. Until one day, I just brought in my 3DS and a bunch of guys ended up inviting me over to play Mario Kart with them. And from then on, we became really close homies, which only got tighter once we got Smash Bros on the 3DS. Spending our mornings and lunch breaks making jokes, smashing bros, driving karts, and whatever games we could also bring in was just a magical time to have a genuine friendship. Maybe I ought to try reaching out to them. Yeah, no shit, this one was gonna be on the list. This game was way too good to not put it up so high. I loved A Link to the Past, don't get me wrong. Not only was it one of my favorite Zelda titles, but it's probably one of my absolute favorite Super Nintendo titles to ever exist. And with A Link Between Worlds being a sequel to said game, well, how could I resist it? And after playing it, you may actually call me crazy for saying this, but I think it's better than A Link to the Past. As for why, it comes down to 2 reasons. For one, I really enjoy how much they chose to expand on concepts like the Dark World, and even included new antagonists to deal with. even if Low Rule is a pretty stupid name, I admit. And second was the all-new gameplay mechanics they added. While becoming a painting was really cool, my favorite was the introduction of Ravio's item shop, which let you rent or buy items depending on whichever dungeon you wanted to tackle, turning the game into a non-linear adventure that can be tackled in any way you wanted. The game is absolutely marvelous and is truly a one-of-a-kind Zelda experience that everybody should try. Well, all we have left for this list is our number 1 spot, but before we talk about that, how about we go over some honorable mentions now. Persona Q/Q2. Super fun titles that are definitely worth a playthrough if you've got the chance, but I'd be lying if I said they got me as hooked as the mainline titles did. Fire Emblem Fates. An incredibly unique idea of having 2 games with different stories and characters, but its biggest strength ends up being its biggest weakness. Plus, the dialogue is pretty rough. Pokemon Super Mystery Dungeon. The gameplay is strong, sure, but the story and especially its characters are so forgettable, I could barely tell you anything interesting about it. I legit forget the main antagonist of this game sometimes. Kid Icarus Uprising. A fun as hell action game that took Pit's series out of the darkness into an interesting new direction. Unfortunately, its handling of things like its camera and the fact it never got to build on what it established kind of hurt this game more and more. Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance. Yeah, as much as I wish I could put this on the top 10 list, after my revisit of it, while it has a lot of strengths, it has a huge amount of weaknesses that drag the whole experience down. There were, without a doubt, a truckload of titles I could have put on this list for the number 1 spot. Trust me, a lot of these games on this list deserved it. But out of all of the games I played on this system, my absolute favorite to this day is without a doubt still Fire Emblem Awakening. Known as the game to save Fire Emblem in the West, and also my first ever Fire Emblem game, no game on here has ever been as continuously replayable for me as Awakening was. I sunk hour after hour after hour into multiple save piles, different team builds, experimenting on what did or didn't work, drowning myself in support conversations, and falling in love with the many lovable characters, like the psychopath Henry, the complete yandere woman Tharja, I think is how you pronounce her name, and of course, legitimate best girl Lucina. And the tactical gameplay is some of the strongest I had ever played, with so many cool classes to master, and some really cool ideas like characters getting married, leading to their child becoming a party member, or pairing 2 units up in battle to double team an enemy. Yes, I know how that sounds. It's such a masterpiece of a game that out of any title on the 3DS, I hope gets remastered the most. But with all the DLC included, because I am not spending all of my money on that. And that is it for the video. It was such a fun time looking back on some of my favorite 3DS games and remembering all the fond memories I had with them. It only further reinstates my belief that this is one of the most underrated handhelds ever made. Thank you all for watching, and thank you once again for getting me to 700 subs. The next special will be taking place at 850 this time, so stay tuned for that. Also, if you were a bit of a 3DS aficionado, this means you, Cyrus Bright, make sure you leave a comment down below letting me know what your favorite game was on the 3DS. I'd be very interested to hear it. Thank you all, folks. See you next time for more RPG content.